apasionante, Sergio.
Ahí va Garnacho. El balón de Garnacho no es nada malo. David Raya acaba de salvar.
Wow.
David Raya acaba de salvar el empate porque la pelota de Garnacho seguramente no quería encontrar la portería, pero se iba directa hasta ella.
¿Cuántas veces hemos visto que estas jugadas acaban en gol? David Raya nos deja claro, es un portero que no tiene igual en la Premier League.
This is Arsecast Extra.
Hello and welcome to a brand new Arsecast Extra. As always, with James from Gunnerblog. James, a goodly morning to you.
Oh, a goodly morning in the end. The sweet relief, Andrew, of a goodly morning after quite the day yesterday. Quite the day.
Quite the day indeed. How was, I guess, your heart, your blood pressure, all of those things?
Not great. Not great at all. That was, it was an ordeal, I think. This fun boat Mikel talked about, it's a rocky ride on the fun boat, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. It's not the funnest boat I've ever been on. I remember when we lived in England, when we were kids, we used to come back to Dublin and we'd get the ferry from Liverpool overnight to Dublin. And I remember one time it was particularly choppy. And I remember a woman sitting at a table in, like, you know, the way they'd have like the sort of open area where people would eat and things like that. And there was a woman who was violently ill. And all I can remember, I still can see the peas on the floor from her vomit.
Regurgitated peas.
Absolutely. Like bright green, like they went down. There was no digestion at all by the time they came back up. They were like solid Captain Birdseye peas. Does Captain Birdseye, or does he do fish fingers? I don't know. Jolly Green Giant, except with not corn, with peas. That boat was more fun than this boat.
Yeah. I've got images of David Raya sort of plunging to pluck peas away. Do you know what I mean?
Just like pea after
clawing peas away from his goal with his big shovel hands. Oh, we owe that man this morning.
We certainly do. We certainly do. I mean, we're 9 games away from doing something that we're all so desperate to do. But I think each one of those games is going to get more and more fraught, more and more anxious and nervy. And we're well and truly into sort of run-in territory here. So I think, you know, there are 2 things that I suppose are a bit distinct when it comes to discussing this game. One is obviously the experience of the game, which, you know, people's mileage may vary on how much they enjoyed or didn't enjoy the whole 90 odd minutes. But then there's the result, which ultimately is the thing that matters the most, you know, and we've come out on top in that sense. Even if there are things we can pick over. And at this stage of the season, I suppose before we get into the nuts and bolts of it all, it is worth just saying that it matters less and less and less how you play. Even if you've got some concerns about whether or not form is sustainable or can you really go on and win a title if you're playing like this. But when you've only got 9 games to go, it matters less how you play and much more that you win. You know, it doesn't matter really how you win, just once you win is the cack-handed point I'm trying to make here.
Definitely. I mean, it's March now, Andrew. This is proper purist run-in time, and results are paramount and performance is secondary. And I saw a bit of Man City at Leeds at the weekend, and you know, it wasn't a stellar performance from them. They were slightly clinging on in the final few moments against Leeds, a team that we went and battered a fortnight or so ago. But it didn't matter ultimately, you know, because they won, and that's what you have to do in this period of the season. And Arsenal found a way to get over the line yesterday. Was it a brilliant burst over the line or a sort of slightly subdued crawl over the line? Maybe the latter, but it doesn't matter. It really, really, really doesn't matter. And I'll gladly take another 9 of those. Although I'll probably be dead by that time.
Yeah, I think that's what I said on Blue Sky after the game was that, like, if Arsenal do win the league and there is a parade, they're going to have it in the cardiac care unit because that is where all of us are going to be, you know? I think you make a great point about Man City as well, you know, because I saw the highlights on Match of the Day. I wasn't going to watch that particular game, but, you know, Leeds could easily have scored before Man City took the lead. Leeds could easily have got an equalizer in that game. It was really difficult for Manchester City, but I suppose from our external viewpoint, right, we're looking at that and going, Man City are inevitable. You know, this is just what they do. They win. Even if they don't play well, they win. Whereas with us, because it's so internalized, because it's so our experience, we're looking maybe at the Arsenal performance and saying, oh, Jesus, you know, we kind of got away with one a bit there when it comes to Chelsea. Whereas perhaps externally, you know, there are people looking at this Arsenal performance and saying, well, actually, you know, what's the real difference between Man City finding it tough against Leeds and Arsenal finding it tough against Chelsea? I suppose the 10-man thing might be part of it, but nevertheless, I think it just demonstrates that in the Premier League, very, very rarely are there easy games. And, you know, City, if you want to say, struggled to get a win against Leeds. We struggled a little bit to get a win against Chelsea, but ultimately both teams did enough to, you know, send us on to the midweek games. And we at the end of the day, opened up that 5-point gap again, which was, you know, a significant thing, I think, because obviously City played before us and it put a little bit of pressure on and we had to respond. And once again, we did that.
Yeah, and 2 big London derbies in the space of a week. Off the back of that disappointing evening at Molineux, to come away from 6 points there is a really, really, really excellent return. And we speak about that feeling of City being inevitable, but I tell you what, there'll be lots of Manchester City fans and Chelsea fans and Spurs fans this morning ruining Arsenal's inevitability. The fact that, you know, we scored from 2 set-piece goals, we ground out a result when we weren't necessarily at our best. That will be sort of, you know, winding up other supporters too. And that's what we want, really, at this time of year. But I think we just need to, we're on this path now. This is who we are. We've got to keep grinding, got to keep going. And we need things like the set pieces. You know, they've been so valuable to us all season long. Never more so, really, than yesterday.
That's true. So, look, let's start at the top and start with the team. There wasn't really any surprise to the team selection, I think, based on what happened last week in the derby. No Martin Odegaard in the squad. Kai Havertz was on the bench, so Eberechi kept his place and everything else was kind of more or less the same. The opening stages, I think, were a little bit cagey. There was sort of a bit of stuff to come to terms with, I guess you'd say, because Cole Palmer began the game sort of out on the left, you know, which I think gave Arsenal something to think about in those opening stages. But apart from that moment where I think it fell for Mamadou Sarr after a free kick deflected off Eberechi, he couldn't quite get his feet sorted out and put it wide, I think Arsenal really came to terms with that quite quickly. You know, there was no prolonged period of pressure from Chelsea, and basically once we sort of got to grips with where Chelsea were positioning their players and adjusted tactically to what they were doing, I think we pretty much controlled most of that first half, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that one of the big themes was Chelsea's playing out from the back and Arsenal's pressure. And, you know, there were a couple of really nervy moments, weren't there, for Robert Sanchez early on. They were determined to persist with it, as they seemed determined to persist with him. But I felt like they were playing themselves into trouble on occasion there. We didn't necessarily make the most of that. I thought it was an unusual Arsenal half in a way, in that I thought there was kind of space for both teams, I felt, in transition quite often. Little transitional moments where, you know, I can think of, in Arsenal's favour, there was the Eze shot from the halfway line. There was one where Gyökeres was played in down the left, and I think it was maybe Saliba who halted him in his tracks. There were a couple of times where Gyökeres, it looked like, might have a run on goal, but we couldn't quite convert it to an opportunity. similarly with Chelsea, I felt like, they were getting the likes of Palmer and Enzo on the ball in all right positions, but they're not necessarily finding the right pass to the overlap or carving an opportunity out of it. Maybe it's telling that there were 2 goals in the first half, both scored from dead ball situations, because I felt in open play, both teams' attack lacked a little bit of incisiveness, although I would agree Arsenal were sort of the more in control in
first 10 shots to 4 in the first half for Arsenal. I think what I take away from that first half where there were moments for Arsenal that didn't quite come off, and you might say it's a little bit unlucky here and there, but there's also, I think, I remember at least 2, there were passes into Eberechi Eze in the box or just on the edge of the box where I would expect a player of his quality to do better with his first touch, and to maybe fashion either a shooting chance for himself or an opportunity to for somebody else. And I think in those positions you need, your 10, your Eze, your Odegaard, whoever it is playing in that position, to be a bit more precise in possession and to make their first touch count more. I thought Gyökeres had a couple of moments, aside from the ones you mentioned, where I think he found the Chelsea defenders much less accommodating than the Tottenham ones, because I think they're better. Basically,
him and the rest of the Premier League.
Yeah,
I think.
Exactly. Yeah, it didn't quite work for him in those moments. But there were a couple of little flicks around the corner. There was one for Trossard, I think, which didn't quite come off, but which were good ideas, which on another day maybe give you a way to get in behind. I thought Trossard it was a really weird performance from Trossard, because the role he played was to sort of drop in and pick up the ball and link play, right? So he would come in off the left-hand side, come into the centre and pick up the ball. And typically he did that part of it fine. It was okay. It was what he did next that was the issue all day long. Like the final pass, the final action just didn't really work for him at all. So there was like this, not blowing hot and cold to our performance, but there were just nearly moments for Arsenal where I think we could have capitalised and caused Chelsea more problems.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. And I think you're right to point out sort of maybe some of the attacking players, the creative players, just weren't quite where you'd want them to be. Trossard, I think if we'd been a little bit sharper, there was probably more for us in that first 45 minutes. That said, we did get ourselves a relatively early goal. What was it, like 18 minutes on the clock? Something like that?
Yeah, I had the live blog up here, so let me have a look. 21 minutes in.
Okay.
One of the things I like about this goal was the fact that I think it was a Saka cross or maybe a Timber cross, I can't remember, but it hit Enzo Fernandez and went out for a corner, and he lay on the ground writhing around like he'd been shot. And I was thinking, well, maybe he got the ball, in his special area, but it was just hit him in the chest, and he was just lying there writhing around, rather than sort of saying, okay, we've got a corner to defend here against a team that has shown throughout this season and previous seasons that they are essentially the best attacking set-piece team in Europe, the Premier League, whatever way you want to put it. Perhaps in the world.
By the way, I was at the other end from that incident, and I assumed he had taken one directly in the goalies from his response. I thought the lineage of the Fernandes family was suddenly thrown into question, but no, just the chest.
Just the chest. Which maybe it's nothing, but was he the captain on the day? I think, I want my captain to get up and just sort of organise the troops and get everybody ready for what is likely to be a very dangerous set piece. And this is where as well, listen, this game was all about set pieces, and there's so much focus on set pieces. And every time Arsenal score a goal, it's like, oh, God, of course they score another goal from set piece. It doesn't happen to any other team. Other teams score goals from set pieces. I think Liverpool got, 3 goals from set pieces this weekend, maybe more. I'm not sure. They're the kings of the set piece now. But when Arsenal do it, it's like, oh, God, here they go again. Boring Arsenal scoring from a set piece. Which, look, I accept because, well, accept is the wrong word. One, I don't really give a fuck what anyone thinks about how we score goals once we score the goals, right? I genuinely don't give a fuck. If you don't like the way we play, tough shit. I prefer to see open, flowing football and beautiful goals and shots from 30 yards, but they all count. And I think what the sort of snobbish dismissal of Arsenal's set-piece goals fails to take into account is that the reason we are so effective from set pieces is because we have brilliant, consistent delivery from both sides when it comes to corners. Madueke has stepped up when Saka hasn't been playing, and Saka, when he plays, we know is capable of taking great corners. Declan Rice from the other side takes great corners. We have players in the penalty box. It's not like it just sort of hits off them. They just stand there and hope for some random action to take place that ends up in a goal. Look at the way Gabriel, I mean, this is clearly a what's the word I'm looking for here?
Rehearsed routine.
Yeah, rehearsed routine. Yeah, exactly. Where it's like, right, we're going to put this one to the back post. Gabriel's going to run to the back post, and he's going to be marked by one of Chelsea's best players, Reece James, right? And he's still going to get to that ball. So the precision with which Saka delivered it, the desire that Gabriel showed, and the timing, by the way, that Gabriel showed to get there to the back post, to head it back across. Saliba heads it on target. It hits Sarr, I think, and goes in. And people look at that and go, it's boring, set piece, you know. But there's a lot that goes into this. Like, you know, you can't just dismiss the quality of what we do from these set pieces, because it's not an accident we score a load of goals from set pieces, you know. There was a bit of chat on Sky about how it might go down as an own goal, and it was like, I think it was Peter Drury said on Sky, well, if this does go down as an own goal, it'll be the 9th own goal Arsenal have had since whatever, December or whatever. And I'm thinking, again, it just sort of sounds dismissive, you know, that it's not like the opposition players are just turning around and kicking the ball in their own net. You know, there's a reason why the ball ends up in the back of the net by either our players or one of their players. It is because of the intense pressure that we put on the opposition from these set pieces, primarily because we take fucking good corners.
Absolutely. I mean, we've conquered the mini game, haven't we? It is a bit like a game within a game. I remember in Final Fantasy there used to be a sort of fishing mini game that sometimes I would go on just to play the fishing. And sometimes it feels a bit like Arsenal could do that in this game. They love the mini game, and they are the very best at it. And there's a very easy way for other clubs who may be tiring of the kind of Arsenal set-piece dominance narrative to end it, and that's stop us. And they've not been able to do that. I mean, I've watched this cornerback a few times, and I can't for the life of me understand why you would let Gabriel have a run-up against you. Do you know what I mean? Like, every other player in that penalty box is tightly marked, basically getting a cuddle off their Chelsea counterpart. And Reece James stands about 6 yards off Gabriel. And that's like standing 100 yards off a freight train and saying, go on then. And yeah, it doesn't work out too well for him. So yeah, I mean, look, we are the best at it. It's a huge weapon. And as I said at the top, we owe it an enormous amount, particularly for yesterday, because it was the difference ultimately.
Yeah. And I think another thing to say is that, you know, part of the reason why set pieces have become more and more important or more valuable in the Premier League is because of how difficult the Premier League is. Because of the overall tactical quality, technical quality of most teams in the Premier League. It's as high as it's ever been. And maybe it makes for a less entertaining league. You know, I think there's probably a good argument to be had in that regard. Mm-hmm. But you have to find solutions. You have to find solutions, and this is one of those solutions. And if people are tired of Arsenal scoring set-piece goals, well, you know, just come and play, open up. open up and let us play behind you. But that's not how it works, and that's not really how it's going to work in the Premier League. There will be a shift to another thing eventually, but right now the reason set pieces are important is because of the way the game is in the Premier League these days.
I think that's a great point. I mean, right now in the Premier League, to thrive, you've got to have a side hustle, and Arsenal's is set pieces. And I think really the question is not. I saw Yaya Toure speaking after the game, and sort of lamenting the idea that a big game like this is decided by 3 set piece goals, and I have some sympathy with that position. But I think the question to ask is not to say why are there so many set piece goals, but why are people turning to set pieces? What's not happening in open play? What are the sort of fundamental tactical issues that are killing a lot of open play football in this league? The set pieces aren't the problem. We want to see goals. We want to see goal mouth action. And corners and set pieces are delivering that. I think we need to look at, if you care, or if you want to have this conversation, you've got to look at the game more broadly in England and say, why is it that a lot of the open play football is not as exciting as it might be? Absolutely.
Arsenal haven't made it like this. Arsenal have reacted to what's been going on.
Yeah, we don't want it like that. I mean, look, we want it like it was at Spurs, where it's open and there's space to exploit, and we can score 4 brilliant open play goals, as we did that day. But you can only beat what's in front of you, and you can only deal with the situation that's there and that's put up by other teams. So, yeah, I've got absolutely no compunction or guilt about exploiting every margin. That's exactly what Arsenal are doing, and other teams are welcome to do the same if they can do it as well as us.
Yeah, well, listen, I think while we're talking about it, and I'm loath to sort of give Chelsea credit for anything because of what a horrendous organisation it is in general, but they took very good set pieces themselves.
They did.
The delivery from Reece James from their left-hand side, obviously the in-swinging corner, was excellent. They'd obviously identified something in the Arsenal setup because they went near post.
I spoke to my brother because he's a Chelsea fan, and he was at the game yesterday, actually. And he said they've got one corner routine, and that's since Rosenior's come in, every corner they take is an in-swinging clip to the near post. Because I like you, was like, that must be specific to us. Like they've targeted us on that. But apparently, since he's come in, that's what they do. And they clearly feel that sort of in playing the odds, that is the most profitable area to look for. And hard to argue with them on yesterday. I mean, it worked for them on more than one occasion and could have led to more than one goal.
So we're almost at half time, and they get a corner which comes in, and there is a VAR check for a penalty. I have to say, being as objective as I can be, I think we get away with one there with Declan Rice.
Do we get away with 2?
Maybe we get away with 2 because the way he's holding him is like. Maybe there's a discussion in part 2.
The holding on corners is an issue, right? As much as we can say Arsenal are exploiting the margins and we've got no issue with it, if I'm the Premier League, I am looking at these corners and thinking, and listen, they won't get a grip on it before May. And thank goodness, in a way. But when I sit down at the end of the season, I'm like, what do we need to address? What can we possibly do for next season? That is really high on my agenda, actually, the grappling at corners, because it is approaching unrefereeable, I think.
I think it is completely unrefereeable. I don't know how you can actually make the decision about, right, who's holding who.
No.
Is he holding him? But if he's holding him, what else is happening in the box? Is somebody else holding this guy? It could be 5 penalties and 5 free kicks out in every corner.
Exactly. They're all at it by the letter of the law. They are all at it.
It's a safety in numbers approach, though, isn't it? From the defensive point of view, if everybody's doing it, and if the attacking players are holding and pushing and shoving and pulling, then the defenders are doing that too. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Like, everybody is doing it. But I think where it becomes most apparent is when the defensive team, and we saw it in, the goal that Chelsea actually scored, where Declan Rice, and I've seen Martin Odegaard do this as well, his role from set pieces and corners has often been one where he has no idea where the ball is. He's not looking at the ball. He's not looking at the flight of the ball or where the ball might be coming from. He is completely focused on the man. That was the case with Declan Rice for their goal. Like, he's basically with his back to the ball, holding a Chelsea player. And I think those are the ones where you're looking at that and go, that can't really be right, and I don't just mean that from an Arsenal perspective. I think for the game itself, it can't be right that that's what's going on. It's like, it's NFL stuff, really, isn't it? It's that level of holding and blocking and, are we going to have a player called a fucking refrigerator soon? Who knows? Whose job is just to do that, But that was on the goal. I mean, what do you think about the penalty shout? Because I will say, if that had happened up the other end, if we didn't get the penalty for the holding, because Rice has 2 arms over the back of this guy, I would be pretty unhappy that we didn't get the penalty for the handball, because he raises his elbow, it hits his elbow, which is, by the letter of the law, a handball. And David Raya, by the way, who's in the middle of a scrum of red shirts and blue shirts, being held and pushed and shoved all over the place, pulls off an incredible save. To put it behind for another corner. Ultimately, it led to their goal. But I would have been pretty unhappy that we didn't get a penalty for that handball.
Yeah, look, I think between the handball and the pulling, they certainly had a shout. It's interesting because they had a VAR check later, didn't they, for when David Raya punched the ball clear. And, I thought that was not a penalty. He didn't make much contact with João Pedro on that second half one. But when you watch it back, William Saliba has got his arms round João Pedro, and that's actually not what they were checking, I believe. So that's just how endemic it is. I mean, it's almost everywhere you turn on any replay, there's some sort of grappling or holding or pulling. And it's not just Arsenal, it's usually both teams at it. I think I would feel a little bit aggrieved. But as I said, I think it is approaching unrefereeable. I think it is at the point where there's almost an amnesty in those moments when the ball goes into the box, because they can't really call it one way or the other. What I will say is, what a sensational save. And there's a great shot from sort of the opposite corner where you see quite how blocked off David Raya appears to be. And 9 out of 10 goalkeepers in that situation would be looking for a foul, would go to ground, would appeal to the referee. He fights his way through a melee of people in that penalty box to make that save. It's a superb save in itself, but the sort of commanding nature of the way that he makes space to then leap and push the ball behind, I think is emblematic of the goalkeeper he is in those situations. And we saw that over the course of the game. It was a great performance from him all round, but I really thought that moment told you a lot about him. The fact that he never looked for an excuse, he never looked for the whistle. He was just absolutely determined to get to that ball. Yeah,
just a brilliant piece of goalkeeping under incredible pressure. But from that next corner, Chelsea are level. It's another good delivery from Reece James. And Cappier, maybe he just doesn't quite time it right. I mean, I think he's got to go for it. He's the guy at the front post. That is your job as that guy at the front post. You've got to, head that over or head it behind or head it out as much as possible. It's interesting because typically that is where we have positioned our centre forward, that near post guy. It's always been Kai Havertz, and I've seen it this season be Victor Gyökeres at that front post. So I'm not quite sure whether there was a change there, a deliberate change. Gyökeres is in the box. He's sort of holding somebody, as they all are. But a touch unfortunate, I think, for Nketiah, who I thought had been pretty good up until that point. But maybe, not that I believe in this sort of stuff, but, there's a sort of, if we got away with the penalty, then they kind of got a bit of something in their favour for this one.
Yes, maybe some sort of malevolent form of justice done there. I wonder if we switched it up specifically because that is Chelsea's corner routine. You know, you'd have to imagine we've observed that and seen that and tweaked our setup a little bit to accommodate. But on this occasion, didn't work. I think it's pure bad luck, really. I mean, he does everything he can do, I think, Nketiah, but our old friend own goal turns on us.
Own goal from a set piece as well. Yeah, horrible time to concede. But yeah, I mean, we scored all the goals in this game. Chelsea didn't even score a goal. So
that's a good point. Well made.
You know, so no criticism of Chelsea for being whatever. Twats, I guess. Yeah, it's bad timing, wasn't it? Because it's one of those where you're thinking, right, just get into halftime, 1-0, take the lead and then take stock. But it takes the wind out of your sails. As Arteta said afterwards, though, it's the same position we were in last week in the North London derby. It was 1-1 at halftime then, and it shouldn't have been. It probably shouldn't have been 1-1 in this game either, but it was, and we had to react. I will say the opening 10, 15 minutes of the second half, I did not care for at all, because I think Chelsea, started pretty well. Reece James put in a couple of decent balls into the box, which could have been a bit more dangerous. We took Trossard off because he just kept giving the ball away. He'd receive it, make some space for himself, and then just sort of clump it to nowhere. Certainly not to an Arsenal player.
We had a moment, didn't we? I think just before he came off, where it was one of those high turnovers, but we couldn't quite get the shot away. I think Gyökeres had a moment to make away, and then the ball came to Trossard and he couldn't quite execute, and that was kind of the story of his day, really. Yeah,
there was some frustration obviously as well, because a couple of times the referee didn't play advantage in moments when he could have. As David Raya, there was two at least anyway, because I can remember Arteta on the sideline talking to the fourth official, and he was saying that's twice now he's done that.
Are you sure that's what he was?
Yeah. It was the positioning of those two fingers.
Sure. He wasn't doing it with two middle fingers, was he?
No, he wasn't. I'm sure he wanted to, because I felt like I wanted to as well. But there were moments, like I think the second one in particular, when they played it on. If play had been let go, Jurriën Timber was basically going to run free all the way into the Chelsea half. Whether he was able to, or would have been able to do anything with it, we'll have to wait and see, or would have had to wait and see. But certainly to have that pulled back, he could have played on, and he could have then, I think it was Cole Palmer who fouled Bukayo Saka as Raya bowled the ball out, and he stopped it to book Cole Palmer when he could very easily have let play go on, let Arsenal have the advantage, and then come back to book Cole Palmer. You can do that as an official. So it was quite frustrating, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, and the crowd weren't happy. I mean, speaking of the crowd, I've got to say that with that game poised at 1-1, the tension inside the stadium was very, very, very palpable. And I don't say that. I know there's been a bit of narrative this season of are the crowd too edgy? Do they need to be more positive? I think on this occasion, you can absolutely forgive that tension, because it was kind of knife-edge stuff. And I think it did feel like a huge, huge half in our season. We'll probably say that again several times between now and May. But it really did feel very, very, very nervous in that ground. And I honestly am not levelling that as a criticism at anyone. I was part of it. I felt that way too.
I mean, on TV, it came across just before the hour mark. I'm just looking at the live blog, and you could really hear the crowd trying to lift the team around the hour mark. But I can understand where that nervousness came from, because certainly I was feeling it. I'm sure everybody in that stadium was feeling it. Everybody watching was feeling it. But we eventually got the second goal. There was a free kick. I think it was Hato fouled Timber. Rice took the free kick. It went behind for a corner. And again, what we got from that side was... let me ask you a question. I've always wondered about this. When you see, and I've said this before, when you see like somebody trying to do something on a skateboard and they're filming themselves, or their BMX or whatever it is, and they get it wrong, and then they upload that to like Fail Army or something like that. And I always wonder, like, why would you upload the one that went wrong, that makes you look like an idiot? And I'm wondering in this instance why it is, if you're a Chelsea fan and you're behind Declan Rice as he's taking a corner and you're shouting stuff at him like Chelsea reject and you're shitting your pants and you're giving him a hard time, and you film that, and then Declan Rice delivers a brilliant corner from which Arsenal score, why do you upload that to the internet so everybody can laugh at you? Because that's exactly what happened.
That's so true, Andrew.
I don't get it.
Why would you upload yourself getting pwned, as it were?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought you were going to say something else, by the way, which is I thought you were going to say, if you were Robert Sanchez and you come out and you flail it across and get absolutely nowhere, why would you ask everyone to watch that again?
Well, that's another great one as well, because he was so adamant when he came out. I was like, oh, fuck.
Same. Because what's really interesting is the Rice free kick that earns the corner, he comes for that as well and gets absolutely nowhere. So I imagine the Arsenal players are kind of giving each other a little look as if to be like, we might be onto something here. And then when Timber scored, I'm sorry to say that, like, I didn't fully celebrate because I was like, the reaction of the Chelsea players and the existence of VAR just made me think, I'm not sure on this. And actually, the guy next to me, like, fully jumped on me and sort of caught me in like a bear hug at a moment when I was sort of almost frozen in stasis watching the officials, which, I mean, of course, it's sort of sad that the game can do that to you now. But he was so convinced that he'd been wronged in some way, whereas in fact, it was just very, very bad goalkeeping and a stark contrast to, you know, the Raya incident we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, he came, got nowhere near it. The delivery, again, is brilliant from Rice. Timber is strong and determined and shows desire to get there first ahead of everybody else. You know, is it the beautiful, beautiful game? No, but I don't think it deserves the scorn that it gets. And in a tight game, ultimately, it proved to be the difference between 1 point and 3 points or no points. You know, the set-piece prowess that we have is invaluable to this team. And it wasn't long after that Chelsea went down to 10 men. I will say at first, when Pedro Neto tried to hack down Gabriel Martinelli and Martinelli got free and the referee blew, I was like, for fuck's sake! What's going on? Just let the play go. Because I had no idea that he'd been booked. I had no idea that he picked up a yellow card.
First one? I was going to ask you that because...
Yeah, there was a replay. They showed a replay afterwards where he's sort of chirping away at the referee and chirping. And the ref kind of tells him, listen, shut your mouth. And he keeps going. So the ref is like, well, here, have one of these. And that was like 2 minutes before... it might have been around in the wake of the goal. I can't quite...
I do remember it. It might not have been televised actually now, but I remember as Chelsea kind of pursued the referee to the halfway line, a yellow card was waved at somebody. I couldn't quite see who it was from my position, but yes, that must have been it. In which case, it was 2 yellow cards in
2
quick
minutes,
succession.
yeah.
A seventh red card of the season for Chelsea. And I do think, I spoke about this a bit on the whistle, but, you know, they are a team for whom discipline is a real issue. And we've been there at times.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been there and we've matured out of it, but they just seem to shoot themselves in the foot time and time again. And I think this was a huge blow because I think they started the second half pretty well. You know, I think they would have fancied their chances of putting us under some serious pressure with 11 men. As it happened, they didn't need 11. But with 11, I think, you know, I think there was still a lot in the game for them, and it was a ridiculous challenge to attempt. Yeah, he seemed to forget he was on a booking as well, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, they have a problem with discipline. I think it is. You could probably draw a parallel between, you know, where we were a few years ago when we got a lot of red cards. and we were quite a young and emotional team, which I think Chelsea are to an extent. So listen, down to 10 men. At that point, this is a game that Arsenal should have controlled and should have done better in. But football is very weird. I don't really have any rational way to explain why we've been so bad against Chelsea with 10 men for like a good chunk of the games that we've played against them this season, because obviously the first game they were down to 10 men in the first half and we drew 1-1 and we couldn't really take advantage of that. In this instance, what I'm looking for is for, Arsenal's experience. It's sort of midfield generals, if you like. I know Declan Rice had to come off, but he was replaced by Christian Norgard, who is a very experienced Premier League and international player who in 20 minutes made 2 passes. Now, that's not an indictment of Norgard as much as it is the entire team, because we had 35% possession with 11 men versus 10. Chelsea with 65% possession. They made 115 passes in that period after the red card. We made 56. How do you explain that beyond, nerves or a sort of subconscious, which I guess it has to be, because it can't be a conscious decision to sit back and allow Chelsea to have the ball, even if you think, we've got 11, they've got 10, we can keep our defensive shape and discipline and keep them at bay. I don't think that was a conscious decision at all. I just think it's sort of the way the game drifted, or we allowed the game to drift into that way. I think, if you're looking at criticism of the Arsenal performance yesterday, for me it comes in this final period of the game where I think we didn't really show enough character on the ball to see out the last 15, 20 minutes in a way that would have, kept our collective blood pressures where it should be and not through the fucking roof. Yeah,
I think that's totally fair. I mean, what was that quote from Mikel Arteta way back when about killing the game with 300,000 passes or something to that effect? I definitely don't think this is by design. There's no way I think Mikel Arteta is saying, just collapse into shape and let Chelsea have the ball and cut crosses in the box. I mean, also watching him look quite agitated on the touchline will tell you that. Arsenal in that situation absolutely had to get hold of the ball, control it, knock it about. And at the moment, we are struggling to do that, I think. I thought we really missed Martin Odegaard in that period of the game, who obviously didn't make the matchday squad. I think he would have been perfect to come on and help control tempo and possession and just have a bit of calmness on the ball. I wonder if there are some technical reasons that we're maybe not as good at that part of the game as we have been previously. Like, when I look at our midfield, am I convinced that either Declan Rice or Martin Zubimendi are necessarily, people who are going to make 100 passes per game at a very, very high rate of completion? I don't know.
I don't think that should be beyond them. I don't think it should be beyond them. I think, their strengths are different, but I don't think technically either of those players is incapable of doing that. To me, Zubimendi looks kind of shattered, to be honest.
I think they both do. I think they both do.
Yeah, I think they both do. And listen, that's why, when Norgard came on, and again, this isn't to be critical of him because I think it's more of a collective issue. I'm thinking, okay, he's got the experience, he's got the calm, put your foot on the ball, dictate the play a bit, pass it left, pass it right. But then it's not just down to Norgard. There was a moment in the 93rd minute, we have the ball at the back. Chelsea have got 10 men behind the ball. They're sort of poised to press if we give them that opportunity. Gabriel has the ball.
Yeah.
Go left to Nketiah. Nketiah can play it up the line to Martinelli, or he can go back to Gabriel, and Gabriel can then play it to Saliba, and Saliba can play it to Timber, and Timber can play it to Saka, or he can play it back or into midfield and make those wall passes, make those triangles, just keep the ball. And Gabriel launches this Hollywood pass towards Kai Havertz, which might be instructive in its own way. Like, okay, maybe we're not feeling as confident about seeing these guys out. We feel like we need to score another goal. We've got to do something spectacular. He launches this long ball, 93rd minute. Havertz doesn't get there. Chelsea then take possession, get the ball forward. There's a moment in the box when Gabriel has to make a block. And then we had that moment where from the play that they recycled, they get the ball into the box. The ball ends up in the back of the net, despite David Raya making 2 incredible saves. I don't know if they go into the statistics book, do they? Because ultimately they were offside when those saves were made, so they probably don't end up
they go into the YouTube compilation.
Well, yeah, they definitely do. Yeah,
more important
for sure. But they get the ball in the back of the net, and of course there is an offside. You wouldn't have seen this on the TV, by the way, but Gary Neville was like, "Oh, I think he's onside here," and I'm like, trying not to be sick, basically.
I mean, I think he must have been looking. I haven't seen that, but he must have been talking about Delap because João Pedro was well off.
Yeah,
wasn't he? He was
you
like
could see that.
Off.
Yeah.
Not that I knew it when David Raya produced that save.
No, but that's what I'm talking about is the sort of squandering of possession unnecessarily to put ourselves under pressure against a team who at that point have got nothing to lose, right? So they're going to do a Hail Mary. They're going to get it forward and they're going to put the ball in the box when actually we should have just kept the ball in midfield and kept the ball circulating around. You know, it's those small decisions, I think, that when they analyse this game again, it's like, you know, just be sensible. Just be sensible. Like, maybe people get annoyed at just sort of keeping the ball. I'm not one of those people. If we just passed it 50 times across the back line, I could not care less, because if Chelsea don't have the ball, they can't score. If we give them the ball, we give them that opportunity. And I think the way we managed that game and the final stages of that game against 10 men was really, really poor. Ultimately, doesn't matter, but I think it is one of those things that, you know, when they analyse the game, when they sit down with the players, they'll be looking at that period of the game as one on which they can definitely improve as and when that situation happens again.
Yeah, and when I talk about us not necessarily having that profile of midfielder, obviously I agree with you. The players we had on the pitch should be better at that. But I'm not sure we have that sort of Jorginho type quite anymore. Like someone who literally is that metronome, will just give it, get it, give it, get it. In a way that sometimes we've decried and said, oh God, it's the horseshoe of death. But the horseshoe of death is sort of what's required really in that last 10 minutes against Chelsea. And although Martin Zubimendi is Spanish, and I think it's sort of tempting to imagine him as that player, I actually think both he and Rice are people who thrive a bit more in sort of broken play and a little bit more direct in their use of the ball. So yeah, I just think that's interesting. I think Odegaard would have helped. I think it's an area where we could improve, and I think when we're looking at the squad next season and maybe thinking about transfers and changes, I do think that sort of pure passing possession king could be of interest. I mean, you know, it would be nice to bring on Sandro Tonali, for example, in a situation like that.
Right. Is that his game? Is that what he does best?
I think he can do. I think he can do it, but I just think I'm not sure Norgard's ever necessarily been that player. I don't know. I also think at the start you were like, can you explain it other than psychological? And we have to say it is surely partly psychological.
Yes, for sure.
It has to be.
Yeah, at this point of the season, so much of what happens is down to that and how you're responding and feeling the pressure and all of those things. What we haven't done is mention the David Raya save that did count, which was sort of cross from Garnacho, which we've all seen drift into the back of the net, because it's one of those ones where the goalkeeper can't react until basically the last second, because if a defender or if the striker gets a touch on it, he has to be available to react to that. So to produce that save, I think this, if we're looking at, you know, in May, maybe we're looking at a moment of the season from an Arsenal perspective. I have a suspicion that if we get over the line, this is one of those moments where we say David Raya has had a huge impact on the season, not just because of the save that he made, not just because it helped us win 3 points because it was so late in the game, we've talked about the late goals we've conceded this season. I think the ripple effect of that Garnacho ball drifting inside the post at that stage of the game, dropping 2 points at home, conceding yet another late goal, could have been really, really damaging to Arsenal.
I think less a ripple, more a tsunami, to be honest. It would have been pretty grim stuff. And it is a really good save. I know that it's not a million miles away from him, but I think what's brilliant about it is the way that he kind of anticipates and reads it, because obviously the ball goes through, I think it's João Pedro and Gabriel who are both challenging for it. And Raya has to be aware that that ball could really divert and change direction. So a lot of goalkeepers, I think, would be kind of caught on their heels there, waiting to see what the nature of the contact is. He manages to read it perfectly and get it away from goal. Yeah, it's big. And I suppose, you could say how scary, how frightening that we were so close to that happening. And should it have been that way? And I think that's a really fair kind of line of questioning. But, football and Premier Leagues are often decided by huge moments, big moments. You think of Man City's, some of their recent titles, a last-second goal from Sergio Aguero, a brilliant 30-yard goal from Vincent Kompany. There are often these big moments that prove decisive and defining.
They don't always have to come from your forward players.
Exactly.
Like a match-winning moment can come from your goalkeeper.
Yeah, and I think that was absolutely one. And, I think David Raya did have a little bit of a dip in performance in the games at Brentford and at Wolves. And I think that was sort of uncharacteristic because he's been so consistent for so long. But I think he, like the team, has responded to that superbly. I thought he was great at Spurs and obviously absolutely fantastic against Chelsea. So, as I said at the top, we owe him a lot. Yeah. Maybe it is all down to this beautiful, voluminous hair that he's growing.
Maybe so.
Shades of David Seaman. Yeah. He just needs to shave the beard into the tash and then we're there.
Get the ponytail on and it's all good. Listen, I think, over the course of this season, Raya has been outstanding, really, for Arsenal. You talk about YouTube compilations. There was one doing the rounds maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, and it was like, oh, fuck, I forgot that, and I forgot that one, and I forgot that one, and the number of saves that he has made this season, on top of the way that I think, generally speaking, he brings... listen, I know there was that goal at Wolves, and that's in the recent memory, but generally speaking, when it comes to set pieces and when it comes to corners and things like that, he is potentially the calmest goalkeeper we've had in that sense since David Seaman. I know, like Jens was Jens.
We have had some mad ones, to be fair.
Yeah, listen, there were goalkeepers, and we've had goalkeepers in the not too distant past who, when it comes to set pieces and corners, have looked a bit a bit more Robert Sanchez than David Seaman. I think David Raya looks a lot more David Seaman than Robert Sanchez.
I think he's exceptional in that regard. And it's interesting, isn't it? Manchester City bought 2 goalkeepers this summer, including Donnarumma, who I think is widely accepted to be one of the very best in the world, a match-winning goalkeeper, as we found out, I think, against PSG last season. And Arsenal, currently 5 points ahead, may well beat City to the title this season. If they do, I think it's a huge validation of David Raya. I think he might have been the best goalkeeper in the league this season, and for a league with Donnarumma and Alisson in it, that's some going. So yeah, I think he's gone to another level. All I can say, by the way, regarding sort of the World Cup in Spain is Unai Simon must be some keeper, because I don't understand how David Raya, based on what I see week in, week out, is not the Spanish number one.
Yeah, the Spanish commentators on the game I downloaded were very, very impressed. They basically said, like, David Raya has no equal in the Premier League in their commentary. And, you know, maybe it's a bit hyperbolic coming from Spanish commentators, but I think he's been just brilliant for Arsenal. And that moment, you know, the Garnacho moment, you know, it saved the win from an Arsenal perspective. And as we said at the top, ultimately it really is all about winning. And I think what's really interesting, I was watching Saliba and Jurrien Timber. They did an interview on Sky Sports on the pitch straight afterwards. And they were like, yeah, big win. Saliba was like, yeah, nice to score and celebrate and all that kind of stuff. And I think from their perspective, they will look at this as like a really hard fought win from which they will take confidence, because this is a hard game. Like whatever jokes you want to make about Rosinha or Chelsea, they're a good team. And this was a very hard game. And, you know, after a North London derby, which is, you know, a crazy game in its own regard, you know, they will take loads of confidence from this, and they'll see it as one of the most difficult games that they have left to play, done and dusted, and 3 points in the bag and on the Premier League table. Whereas as fans, you know, our experience of it is very different. You know, we're spectators, we're looking at it, it's out of our control. I think the Arsenal players will feel quite differently about this game than maybe we did in the immediate aftermath, because of just how tight it was. I think they'll just, you know, see it as a job that they had to do. They got it done, and, you know, on to the next one.
Yeah, and I think, obviously, I do think the difficulty of fixtures on paper is kind of meaningless at this stage of the season, because I think context is so important. You know, have you just come back from a European trip? Is that team fighting for survival and to stave off relegation? You know, all these kinds of things are a factor. But this was one of our hardest games on paper. And yeah, we got the 3 points. That's all that matters. When I looked at Spurs and Chelsea off the back of that Wolves game, I didn't, you know, I have to be honest and say I didn't necessarily see 6 points in Arsenal's favour. And to do that, I think, is a huge step towards where we want to be. Yeah,
absolutely. And, you know, what we do now is put this one to one side. They've got to prepare and get ready for Brighton on Wednesday, which is going to be another tough game away from home. And just try and replicate the result. If the performance is better, brilliant. You know, I'm all for that. I will take points over performance every day of the week, though, now. I know the two things are not separate. They're not distinct, and there's obviously a direct line between how you play and your ability to win games. But I think what this Arsenal team has shown throughout this season is that we are a team that can really grind out wins. Is that fair? I mean, I was looking...
Oh, yeah.
I was looking at... I responded to somebody on Blue Sky last night. Let me see if I can find it here. Macho Grande. He said something about Arteta paying the opposition too much respect. Football would be less stressful than this current brand of margin ball. Right? Where we're sort of living on the edge of everything. I went back to have a look, and it's not to compare the two teams, but the last time we won the title, in 2003, 2004.
I remember it well.
Yep. We had, in the entire season, 12 games that we won by 1 goal margin. 1-0 or 2-1 or 3-2 or whatever it was.
Wow.
11 of those games came before we won the league. And there was one, I think it was the final day, wasn't it? Leicester, 2-1.
Came from behind, yeah.
Came from behind to go through the season unbeaten, right? So we had 12 of those games, 11 before we won the title. This Arsenal team has had 8 so far this season. The perception, though, is quite different, which I understand, by the way, for obvious reasons. But This is, like it or not, whether your heart beats more quickly, whether your blood pressure goes through the roof, whether you bite your fingernails, whatever happens to you, this is part and parcel of winning a title. Like it or not, it's part and parcel of winning a title. Winning these tight games by close margins, because it's great when you win 4-0 or you win a derby 4-1 or you turn leads over. Those are, generally speaking, far more the exception than the rule. Most games in the Premier League are really tight. And so far this season, we have demonstrated the ability, more often than not, to come out the right side of those tight margins. Mm-hmm. So long may that last, or at least until May anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And that could be the difference, ultimately.
All right. Yeah. Anything else, or do you want to take a little break here?
Let's take a little break.
Let's take a little break. All right. We will be back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Blue Sky at gunnerblog.bsky.social and at arseblog.com. Also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. I didn't notice any questions about this. I'm sure there were, but I didn't see any. Did you celebrate St. Totteringham's Day? Apparently the earliest one that has ever been in the era of the Premier League.
I did, man. I did. I mean, the thing, actually, tell a lie. I only did after the fact because I was so wrapped up in our own game that it sort of passed me by. Do you know what I mean? I was just so overjoyed to have finally got over the line and have got the 3 points. It's almost as if Tottenham are so irrelevant that I'm not thinking about them very much anymore. But I did enjoy their defeat at Fulham. A beautiful goal from Alex Iwobi.
The most Alex Iwobi goal that ever happened. The side foot Iwobi finish, yeah.
A 30-yard pass. He spoke afterwards about how he was able to score. He said something like, I've got an unusual groin. I'm paraphrasing. But it was some hit, actually. The way he sort of opens his body out to strike it. We actually had a request from Matthew Miller on Blue Sky saying, is it too soon to read some #Igor outposts? And you would think it would be, right? 2 games into a managerial reign. And yet, Andrew,
okay,
a quick search of the bad place tells me there's stuff there if you have a little look. I mean, this was during the game. Spurs fan Andy, 2 down to Fulham, shambolic display and no changes. What the actual fuck? #Tudor out. Which sounds like something from the War of the Roses, frankly. And then this one from Spurs fan Luca, taking Igor Tudor as coach ad interim is the worst decision made by this ridiculous club. Which takes some beating, to be honest. I mean,
when you consider some of the decisions they've made. Yeah.
I also enjoyed this from Graham Wilkinson, who said, #Tudor out, #Enoch out. We are doing a Leeds. We won't be back for years.
Fingers crossed. The problem is that West Ham and Nottingham Forest are not helping us here.
We need something. West Ham are the ones I'm holding out hope for, which is not a great position to be in life.
Yeah.
But if they could just win a couple of games,
that would be good, because Tottenham don't look like doing it. And I enjoyed very much the little clip, the headline you sent me through last night on WhatsApp. Tottenham lacking in attack, midfield, defence and brain, says Tudor after Fulham loss. So, it's right up there with the David Moyes, Manchester United have to work on many things tweet, which is basically every aspect of the game.
From that assessment, Tudor sounds quite astute.
I don't necessarily think he is the problem,
No, perhaps not. Perhaps not. He does seem thoroughly depressed already about being Tottenham manager. There was a great clip before, I think it was his pre-match press conference for Fulham, where they sort of said to him, Igor, we had a few players out from injury. Do you know when they're going to be back? And he just sort of went, I don't know. It's like he's weary of life already after basically a week in the Spurs job.
Yeah. There was another headline, I think it was like, this is worse than I thought. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but the situation is worse than I thought it was going to be. And then he comes out and says the players aren't fit enough to do what you need to do in Premier League games, in part because it's a small squad, obviously, with a lot of injuries, but also because they're just not fit, which I think is an indictment on previous managers as well.
Wow. Yeah. It's good stuff. It's really good stuff. The dream is still on, right, of Arsenal win the title and Spurs relegated. That would be just magnificent.
Yes, indeed. All the chefs are getting kissed if that happens. That's how it works, right? We all have to go around kissing chefs. Watch out, chefs. That's all I'm saying, if that scenario plays out. Right, let's kick on with a few questions. Callum on the Discord says, would you agree that this is Declan Rice's trickiest patch of form since joining Arsenal? If so, what do you think is the cause? Fatigue, anxiety, or normal drop in performance from a player that has otherwise been abnormally consistent? Does the cramp injury in this game show he's been playing in the red zone for too long, and what can we do about it? There was a follow-on question from Simon C, who says, hopefully Rice isn't injured, but if he has to miss any games, who fills in?
Well, what did you make of his substitution yesterday, by the way?
Well, I'm guessing because he made that sort of run back and then he sort of played a bad pass back. It was a great piece of defensive covering, but then he hammered the ball out for a Chelsea corner and seemed to just do something. You could see him feeling something, couldn't you, after he made that run? So I wasn't surprised that he came off. The fact that he had to come off probably tells you there is something wrong, which is a bit of a worry. With Martin Odegaard sidelined again, we are down to bare bones from a midfield perspective, aren't we?
Yeah, I've heard it's from what I've heard on Declan Rice, it's nothing particularly serious. I think fatigue is an issue at this point in time. As I said in part one, I think fatigue looks to be a bit of an issue for both him and Martin Zubimendi, who've just played an absolutely extraordinary amount of football. And I remember a matter of weeks ago us saying, like, can they continue to perform at this level without significant rest? And I think we're sort of getting our answer in a way, which is not quite. I don't think they are absolutely at their best at this point in time. Maybe Rice does sit out the Brighton game. I think he'll be itching to play it and he'll want to play it, but I don't know. Maybe they have to think about the remainder of the run-in and be a bit protective. And in terms of what that means, it means Christian Norgard, to be honest with you. Yeah, in my eyes.
There's nobody else, certainly. You could make a very good case for both Rice and Zubimendi to sit out a game. We can't obviously afford to do that. Of course. Yeah, there is the FA Cup coming up on Sunday, where I think, if Mikel Arteta looks at the fixture list and looks at, how he can maybe recharge the batteries of Rice and Zubimendi, he's got to look at that FA Cup game as one in which they do not feature at all, right? And that might mean playing somebody out of position. It might mean turning to the academy to bring a player in, because what we've got, after the Mansfield game is a tricky enough away game in the Champions League. Bayer Leverkusen, and then of course there's the Everton game, followed by another game against Bayer Leverkusen, and then the Carabao Cup final before we go into the interlull, right? So I think he's got to maybe nurse the pair of them through the Brighton game. Maybe start one and bring another one off the bench if need be, but Norgard will probably start against Brighton if we're going into protective mode. I
say, look, maybe he'll miss it, but I think if Mikel is confident that he can start both Rice and Zubimendi, I think that's exactly what he'll do.
And then give them the week off.
And give them
a week off. You can give them a full week.
Can he?
Yeah, well, it'd be Wednesday against Brighton, and we don't play again in the Champions League until the following Wednesday. So it is essentially a week off.
Yeah. So they could have, Thursday, Friday off, report back into training over the weekend. That could do them the world of good. I think obviously we're missing players in midfield. No Ranieri, no Marino. But I also think the way the shape of the midfield has changed gives us some challenges. I think that's what means it kind of would have to be Norgard. I think in previous seasons or even earlier this season, it was much more of like a 6 and 2 8s, and now it feels much more like 2 6s and a 10. A 10. Yeah, and I think if I think of that left 8 role that Rice used to really play for us, you could put Kai Havertz in there, But the way the team is set up currently, I don't see that as plausible a swap. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even Martin Odegaard, I'm not quite sure if he were available. I think he's probably going to miss a couple of games. I don't expect him back for Wednesday at the very least. So, yeah, it is tough. We are going to have to squeeze an awful lot out of these players between now and the end of the season, and then they're going to go to a World Cup. Yeah, so I think there's interesting sort of questions to ask about the potential hangover from all that, and what will our squad look like at kickoff next season.
I'm sort of, I just can't get my head there yet. I'm sort of at a point where if we do it this season, I'm like, okay, just do what you want. Do what you want next season.
Take the next 5 years off.
Exactly. Right? Just, buy who you want. I don't care. Play who you want. I don't care. Just rid me of this stress and this desire and ambition I have to see Arsenal become champions again. And I think I can relax a bit more about next season or however that plays out, knowing that, we have that monkey off our back, so to speak, Yeah,
of course. But what we don't want to happen is that we lose either of these players for a significant period. That is the balancing act, isn't it? That's the tightrope walk. I think Rice, to come back to the original question, is it his biggest dip in form? I'm not sure. When he was it the last summer tournament that he came back and it took a little bit of time to get up to speed
after the Euros,
yeah. And I think he's had one or two others, even when in his very first season, I think there were little periods where he wasn't quite at his very best. I just think he looks fatigued, honestly, and it's totally understandable.
They said on Sky yesterday that no player in the Premier League has covered more distance than Martin Zubimendi.
Yeah. I think that's accurate.
So as of yesterday, Zubimendi is top with 299.8 kilometres, and you would imagine he's added, another, 10 to 12 kilometres yesterday based on the performance that we have. So that tells you quite a bit about what sort of an effort he's put in. And I think, with Zubimendi, you can see the fatigue in some of his performances now, and the mistake he nearly made again yesterday where Raya bailed him out. He played the wrong pass back to the goalkeeper and almost got caught. I think that is a real sign of fatigue, to be honest. That it's not just a physical thing, it can also be a mental thing. But the unfortunate part of this is, as we said, we don't have a great deal to choose from in midfield. So, fingers crossed there's no particular issue with Rice.
No, I saw a lot of, you should never take social media as a barometer of anything, but I saw a lot of criticism of Martin Zubimendi last night, and I thought much of it quite over the top. I'm not saying he had his best game by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think that one aberration maybe played very heavily into that. And I think overall you've got to be incredibly happy with the season that he's had and what he's produced in a first season in English football. So,
yeah, if the reason the guy is a bit knackered is because he's played basically every game and he's run further than every other player in the Premier League this season, you have to take that into account. You can criticize individual moments or whatever, but like, this is not a guy who's coasting or anything like that. This is a guy who's really putting the hard yards in for Arsenal this season. And part of why, as we talked about in the first half of this podcast, part of the reason why we're capable of winning these tight margin games is because of things like that. And maybe it doesn't get the sort of praise that a David Raya save gets or a Victor Gyökeres goal gets, but it's still as important to the team as those things, I think, Yeah. Not as easy to quantify,
Yeah, I'm fairly sure I saw it being put to Mikel Arteta by Sky in the run-up to this game that Arsenal and Manchester City have run further than any other teams in the Premier League this season. So, there is a correlation there between kind of effort expended and reward ultimately. Wise Marklar, as ever, comes with all the big questions and says, thoughts on Saliba's clear disrespect towards the ball boy craft. Hashtag not at my club. Hashtag justice for ball boy. Did you see this?
This is where he celebrates the Timber goal by booting the ball off its little cone thing. And the ball boy's like, oh, God, what have you done? I put that there. I put it like perfectly. The valve of the ball was like there, it was ready. Yeah.
He's devastated. I mean, Saliba's goal celebrations are always a thing of beauty. I enjoyed his celebration for his own goal as well. It's quite sort of unusually cool, actually. It seems like he's less excited when he scores than when somebody else scores.
Yeah, the windmills are for everyone else, Booting the corner flag is for everyone else.
But yeah, that poor ball boy, he reacted as if he had to then climb through the crowd to retrieve the ball himself. Maybe he did.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun mini game.
Like fishing in Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
What about this one? Coper Matt of Everything is Fine. Okay. Not sure it is. He says, is Arsenal can't keep getting bailed out by corners just this year's equivalent of Liverpool can't keep getting bailed out by Mo Salah?
That's a really interesting comparison, isn't it? Because what Liverpool had in Mo Salah was somebody on a sort of generational, if you'll pardon the word, run of form, like a sort of force of nature almost, who couldn't be stopped. And it was... And I think when it's kind of individual talent, that's something that we as fans can kind of invest in and get on board with and be excited about, even if you're not a Liverpool supporter. But set pieces arguably have been, nearly as important a weapon to Arsenal this season as Salah was to Liverpool last. And it's not the same. I get it. It's not aesthetically as beautiful or thrilling. But they're the best at something and no one is finding a way to stop it. And I don't really see why anybody at Arsenal should have to apologise for that.
Agree completely.
I also think, we spoke about the sort of the league in general. And I do think that this Arsenal team are sort of a product of this league. Like you look up and down the table, there is massive emphasis on set pieces. It is not just Arsenal. And that is a consequence of the style of football that's being played, the type of defending that people are employing, the investment in set pieces that other clubs are making, hiring specific staff and analysts to focus on those situations. This is the Premier League. I think Reece James said it last night. He said, this is the Premier League in 2026. And he got it slightly wrong. I think he said 90% of goals are set pieces. I don't think Opta will necessarily back that up. but there is massive emphasis on set pieces. And, we're just playing in the landscape that we're dealt. And we're thriving.
By the way, Declan Rice produced a long throw yesterday. Did you notice that?
Yes. Yeah, from the right-hand side.
Yeah, right towards the end of the game, I think. And I was like, here we go. Another one of these like floaty, not very long throws. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. Wait a fucking minute. That's a long throw, a proper long throw. Like, is that an accident? Is that a one-off? Or is that what he's capable of doing now? Is this what the throw-in dude, what's his name? Billy Throw-in.
Oh, the throw-in consultant.
Mm-hmm. Thomas something. Tommy Throw-in.
Thomas Gronemark, the inventor of the throw-in.
Mm-hmm. Is that
the first ever throw-in?
Yeah. Is it a step forward, a hand forward, a whatever forward?
Maybe it's a development. I mean, his role has been kind of downplayed to me a little bit in terms of what he actually contributed to Arsenal. I think he sort of came in and did a few kind of seminars or workshops over a few days. I don't think it's a kind of
ongoing thing, yeah.
Continuous long-term role. And it's quite funny, every time Mikel Arteta has been asked about him, he's sort of almost acted as if he doesn't know he exists. So I don't know if that's a question of sort of not enjoying somebody external taking credit.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think long throws, we've spoken about them already this season. I mean, yeah, if we can turn our long throws into as deadly a weapon as our corner kicks, we'll be in a very healthy position. But we're way off that at the moment. They're not the strongest suit of our kind of dead ball Arsenal.
No. Here, there was a couple about in-stadium stuff which I want to ask you. Kieran, who's at cjwalsh.bsky.social, he said, today was the first time in ages we began playing towards the North Bank. It seems we prefer to play towards the clock end first. Is that to give us a marginal advantage in the second half, playing towards exclusively home fans and to diminish the impact of the away fan support? Chelsea won the toss and turned it around. So obviously part of their strategy, I guess, to make things
I hate
uncomfortable.
That, by the way.
What?
It makes me really uneasy when teams turn us around at home.
Why should it make any difference? You're at home. The advantage is being at home, not... I mean, I'm just throwing it out there for the sake of discussion. There's obviously a preference and there's, a way we like to do it, but should it really freak anybody out?
Of course not. But as Mikel has said himself, footballers are creatures of habit and often quite creatures of superstition at times. And I am certainly one of those creatures in it. And it just feels wrong. You know what I mean? It just feels like... I mean, I suppose there is something to be said for... is there a preference shooting one way or the other because one end contains away fans and the other doesn't? Arsenal typically finish at the North Bank, scoring towards a stand made up entirely of their supporters. Does that help? I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, I hate it whenever teams make us switch around. It annoys me. Probably more than it should. But there you go.
Okay. The other one was from NM51. He said, I saw a few questions about the pitch and wanted to see if James noticed it in the ground. It looked better today, but very slippery. Recent matches have shown rough patches in certain areas, especially in the penalty areas. Is this random? I mean, did you have any observations on the pitch?
I actually thought it looked good, I must say. Because obviously I had a different vantage point yesterday. I was in the upper tier. Normally I'm in the lower tier. And I've seen pictures of the pitch that have been, by Arsenal standards, quite surprising, quite shocking. It's rare to see the Emirates carpet in any form of damage, or any form of being less than perfect. And we have seen a bit of that. I thought aesthetically it looked good to me. I don't know is that how it came across on television? Or
it sort of looked fine. I remember there was one game a couple of weeks ago where the goal mouths where I was like, is this 1986 again? Yeah. The way the goal mouths used to always get a bit worn down over the course of a season. But of course, I think what people have talked about, the amount of games that have been played on it, I think it's far more to do with the weather.
I mean, it has rained for several months.
Yeah, exactly. Same here in Dublin, that it's been a very, 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 very wet start to 2026. And that, I think, has had a big impact. I'm not sure what they can do. They did the golf club I'm a member at sent out they send out an email every week, and they were like, this is the rainfall that we got in 2022, and it's like a little bar chart, you know, and it's like a tiny one for 2022, 2023, and 2026 is like 5 times the rain of all the previous years put together. So there's been a lot of rain. I think that ultimately is what's caused the damage on the pitch, no?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, I've seen people citing, is it an issue having more games because women's team playing on there as well? I mean, obviously it's a smaller fixture list in the league, in the WSL at least. I think the weather probably is the primary thing. But I thought it was okay yesterday, I must say. So, yeah, I don't know what they've done, but seem to have made some improvements.
All right.
What about this one? We touched on it, but Charlie J says, "Goodly morning, boys. Trossard's early season form feels like a distant memory at this point. Is it time to try something new on the left wing? Surely it's worth revisiting Eze playing there when Odegaard is back."
Well, I mean, I think the key part of that is when Odegaard is back. And when will he be back? That is the question that we have this morning. We're not 100% sure on how long he's going to be out or what the nature of the problem that he has is. I think Mikel Arteta said it's related to the one he picked up against Brentford.
Yeah, and it was a knee, I think.
So it always looked to me like that might be a bit more serious. And then he came back, obviously, and was on the bench. And
I mean, what you would say is we're a fortnight away from an international break. So, you know, I don't know. But there's big games before that, really big games. I mean, 2 games against Bayer Leverkusen, a couple of Premier League games, and a Carabao Cup final. He'd be desperate to be involved in those.
For sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, if it, you know, it's not beyond the realms of possibility, is it, that a player could pick up a tweak to the knee and miss 2-3 weeks? But if you're going to miss 2-3 weeks, that'd be a cruel period to be out.
I mean, I think the thing about, you know, if Odegaard is available, Eze on the left is certainly a consideration if you want to get those technical players closer to Victor Gyökeres, right? Which I think people have accepted is maybe the best way to get the most out of him. But, you know, Trossard has just 1 assist in his last 10 Premier League appearances. Hasn't scored since the 4-1 win over Aston Villa on December 30th.
Wow, yeah.
So it's, you know, it's a good while ago. So there is probably a case to be made that somebody else deserves a run in the team. Then it's about, you know, whether you view Martinelli and Gyökeres as compatible or whether you need to do something different at centre forward. Does Kai Havertz returning make a difference there? Is Kai Havertz somebody who could play in midfield while Eze plays on the left?
It was interesting that Havertz came on at 9 yesterday, I thought.
I guess for presence, you know, just for sheer physical presence as well.
Yeah. I think so. Although, to be fair, I didn't think he looked especially sharp.
No.
Which is maybe to be expected. But, yeah, Arteta spoke about using Eze on the left more in the run-up to this game, didn't he? He said it could be a possibility. I think I spoke about this before, but when they signed Nketiah, I think they had in their mind the idea that there might be a natural chemistry between those two on the left-hand side, or at least a balance between those two. The way the season's played out, we haven't really seen that. But yeah, Trossard, I mean, I suppose he's a lesson in start a season well, because it defines the narrative to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, but obviously I've seen some criticism of Trossard and his output of late, and that is, I think, the big question mark over what remains of this season is the output from our attacking players. You know, it's still hanging over us a little bit, you know, where Trossard is not really producing goals and assists in the Premier League at this moment in time. Martinelli is not really doing it in the Premier League. I think he's our second highest scorer, but scores mostly in the cup games. Bukayo Saka as well, whose output is not where it is, although I think, you know, he did play pretty well yesterday. Great corner. Made 4 key passes in the game as well. There was one for Zubimendi, which Zubimendi put over.
That was a decent chance.
Yeah, it was a better chance than Zubimendi made it look. But ultimately, we need more from these guys. We need more goals and assists, particularly from our wide players. So hopefully we can find a way to do that.
By the way, Andrew, have you done a pod? Forgive me, I've been busy. But have you done a pod since the Champions League draw?
We did a preview pod over on Patreon, so we haven't talked about the Champions League draw.
Can I get your reaction then for the wider populace?
I liked it. I think.
Did you do it? I feel like it has the hallmarks as if perhaps maybe you designed it.
I wish I had that level of influence.
Yeah.
I think it could have been more tricky. The side of the draw that we're on is obviously, I'm not going to say easier because, easier is probably the right way of putting it, but not easy, but certainly easier than it could have been. When you look at the title race and when you look at the run-in, I think you couldn't really have picked a better draw from an Arsenal perspective when it comes to the round of 16 and the quarterfinals, right? Potential quarterfinal. Yeah. Where if we get through against Bayer Leverkusen, we're going to play against Bodo Glimt or Sporting. And again, it's not taking anything for granted, but that is certainly an easier way than playing Real Madrid and potentially Bayern Munich, which is what Manchester City have to contend with. So beyond it being quite a favourable draw for us in European terms, I think there is something important about it in the title race as well, that City have got more difficult games than we have. And I'm glad of that aspect of it,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's kind of a twofold win, isn't it? And it gives us a better path to the final. I mean, there's some great stories along the way as well, potentially. Obviously, we'll have Nketiah going back to Leverkusen. Might have Gyökeres going back to Sporting.
Mm-hmm.
A reunion with Barcelona 20 years on from Paris is a possibility in the semi-final.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah. And then...
Yeah. Or Atletico Madrid, it could be.
Could well be. Or
two,
Spurs.
Or
Newcastle.
Or Newcastle. Or Newcastle, I think. I'd be very, very surprised if this Spurs team were able to get beyond Atletico Madrid,
Well, they've got bigger problems to worry about, I think.
They've got bigger fish to fish for in Final Fantasy. That's what you're saying.
Yes, exactly. I think it was about as good as we could have hoped for. Listen, I take nothing for granted. We must... Whenever you say that, you're like, look at our route to the final. It feels like you're sort of looking beyond the opponents. And I think, Bayer Leverkusen will be challenging and difficult.
Of course.
But
it's overdue as well, though. I saw people go, oh, typical Arsenal, they get a nice, easy draw. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Have you not, paid any attention? Our first season back in the Champions League, we got Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals. Last season, we got Real Madrid and then PSG. And how many fucking times, James, did we get Barcelona or Bayern Munich in the round of 16? It was every fucking season. So once...
let us have it.
Let us just have it once. We'll find a way to fuck it up. Don't worry. But just let us have it for the moment.
I know. And even in the FA Cup recent years, we've had really tough draws. We've had Liverpool, United, City in the early rounds. So... Yeah. People may look at our run this year and the fact that we've got a tie on Saturday against
Mansfield on Sunday, I think, isn't it?
I think it's Saturday, actually. Saturday lunchtime.
Is it?
Yeah.
Right.
Unless my iCal deceives me.
Let me have a look.
12:15 in Mansfield, I'm told. You don't believe me, though. I
do believe you. I do believe you. I've just looked it up and now I believe you.
Yeah. You didn't believe me before that, though. That's what
I should never have doubted you.
We've been through.
I apologise. I should never have doubted you.
As you know, my diary, my timekeeping is absolutely impeccable. I've never made a mistake. I've never got something wrong. I've never been arrived at the wrong time.
Never been late.
It's sad, really, that you didn't trust me in that moment.
I am sorry.
What are we talking about? Trossard, oh yeah. What about this? Giroud to Giroud said, question for you about the new rule changes. Did you see this? The new rule changes? BBC reported these are going to be trialled at the World Cup, and most will be put into the Premier League, with the exception of the VAR for corners. So the changes are expedited VAR for corners. I think that's for the award of corners, is it? Rather than what's actually happening in the box.
Like, so, for example, when Eze took his shot yesterday and the ball was clearly behind the line, VAR would be able to say that's a corner.
I guess so.
Expedited, you say, yeah?
Expedited, I believe. Yeah, let's just double check that, because I feel like, corners will be added to the scope of assistant referees.
And second yellow cards, no?
Second yellow cards, yeah, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Review corners. Yeah, I think that is what it is. It's not actually explicit, but I assume it's that. The other ones are, VAR for second yellows. Thirdly, players who receive treatment cannot re-enter play until 60 seconds after the restart.
I think that's bullshit.
Yeah, I do. I think that's.
I think it's ridiculous that you as a player could be on the end of a bad challenge for which a player gets booked. Like, what happens if, Arsenal player gets kicked, he's down, he's hurt because he's actually been kicked badly by an opponent. The opponent gets a yellow card, but the Arsenal player has to go off and stay off the pitch for 60 seconds? That doesn't make any sense. It really does not make any sense unless you say, I don't think it makes much sense, but maybe there's a way to offset it by saying, if a player commits a bad foul, he gets a yellow card, and the guy who gets treatment has to be off the pitch for 60 seconds. Why can't you make that guy go off the pitch for 60 seconds? But I think you open a real... I know what they're trying to do is to stop, tactical timeouts and things like that, right? But it seems absurd to me that you can be fouled and hurt and your team is punished while the other team just has to deal with a guy who's on a yellow card.
I mean, maybe... to play devil's advocate, and when you're talking about FIFA, I think that is an appropriate phrase. Maybe it's about encouraging the treatment to occur off the pitch rather than on. I don't know. You might reason as a club or as a team, if a player has to be off the pitch for 60 seconds, we might as well give him the magic sponge there and play can continue. But it does seem absurd to punish a player for requiring treatment. Yeah. And then it says 10-second countdown for throws and goal kicks.
Are they going to actually have a fucking... They're going to play that out of
It's going to be a guy who they employ to run along the sideline.
9, 8, 7...
Megaphone.
I mean, listen, I think we all want to see throw-ins taken a bit more quickly. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's
how is that?
My thing is it's more and more VAR rather than less.
Well, that's it. The idea that, they're going to do expedited judgments on whether a corner should be awarded or not. At one point we're going to be sitting there and 4 minutes later, they're going to be we're not sure actually if that ball has gone over. Is it fully over the line or is it just the angle of the ball or what are we doing here? At some point...
Think about that goal we conceded at St James's Park. How long would it take them? Well, how long did it take them?
Crazy. I think, the idea that games should not be re-refereed. I don't think there's anybody in the fucking history of football or the Premier League has said, what we need? VAR to see whether or not the ball has gone out for a corner or not. It's either a corner or it's a goal kick. Who gives a fuck? Really? Mm-hmm. How many great injustices can you think of in the game of football where a team didn't get a corner or a team got a corner and it either was or barely wasn't one of those things? Genuinely, what problem are we trying to solve here?
Good question. I don't know. But that'll be fun to look forward to.
Ultimately, I think, we can just blame it on Gianni Infantino. Yeah? I think so.
I'm very happy to do that.
Yeah, I think we can all do that. Also, just to see us out.
Excuse me, boss. Fuck Chelsea. Chelsea shit. Yeah. Fuck Chelsea. What? Fuck you. Fuck Chelsea.
I think that's a good place to end today's show, right?
I think it is. I think, by the way, I am aware, I should say I'm aware, I think Chris Sutton is baiting me now. I think he's just...
Yeah, I was going to ask
He's waving me the red flag, isn't he?
I was going to ask you, yeah. What did he say? That Arsenal, if they win it, they could be the ugliest Premier League champions to ever win the league. Something like that.
Please, has he seen David Raya's new hair? Anything but ugly. Beautiful.
It certainly is.
It's not here. Listen, I think it's sad, really, that he's taking this stance, and it's not him I feel sorry for. It's his great grandchildren, because obviously he will have had some descendants who looked into his history and were disappointed, but then that will be forgotten in the annals of time. But then hundreds of years later, another young Christopher Sutton Jr. will come along, and maybe he'll be into genealogy and ancestry, and he'll look into who his predecessors were, and he'll find out, oh, there's someone of note in the family. You know what I mean? Like some notoriety and renown. Maybe he'll visit the grave in Blackburn.
Buried beside Alan Shearer.
Yeah, he's buried right next to Shearer, the SAS. And the gravestone, it'll be hundreds of years, it'll be all covered in ivy. Moss. Yeah. And he'll scrape it away. He'll be like, this is his grave of my great granddad. Everyone in Blackburn must have loved him. He was so popular. He was on television, on the radio. Everyone must have thought, what a brilliant guy. And he's pulling the ivy away, and he's pulling the moss away. And there it says, here lies Christopher Sutton. He was the most miserable cunt that ever lived.
Well, he is the champion of being a miserable cunt.
It's what he'll be remembered for.
For sure. Andrew. Listen, play to your strengths, I think.
Loving father, average striker, miserable cunt.
Hopefully he's not a fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm either, because he'll go, he was also my aunt.
Hopefully he's not a fan of Arsecast Extra, mate. That's all I can say.
Yeah, well...
but as I've stated, in real life, I love him. I think he's great. I fully approve. It's just my podcast persona.
You're just doing a bit. Exactly. If we do win the Premier League, I think I'll just get a range of ugly T-shirts, which we can...
If we win the Premier League, he should be strapped to the front of the bus for the parade. That's my view.
Can you get a bus through the cardiac care unit, though? That's the thing.
Yeah, maybe not.
A little tiny weeny bus. Who knows? All right. Well, onwards and upwards and continue upwards, I guess you would say. We've got a game on Wednesday against Brighton, so we'll have a preview podcast for you on Patreon. We'll be talking about all the Premier League action this weekend, in quite an interesting weekend in the league on the 30th, a bit later on this afternoon. Also on Patreon, patreon.com/Arseblog. For now, though, folks, take it easy. Thank you for being here as always, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.